Hey, Sooner football fans. This is your Sooner Football Fans podcast. You got Terry and Rob here. Boomer Rob.
Boomer Terry.
And we are at the Podcast Palace in beautiful Norman, Oklahoma on game week.
Where we are not affiliated with the University of Oklahoma.
But we do have eligibility left.
That's right, we do.
A few years.
I don't think they're going to need us on the line, though, Terry.
No, I don't think so.
In fact, I think we're not even remotely big enough to play on that line.
No, but hit your subscribe button on whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. Check us out on Twitter at Sooner Football Fan or SoonerFBFans.com Facebook page. Check out TailgateConnect.com. Dan Donnelly and his tailgate. He can set you up for all the tailgates if you're going to be traveling and you want to swing by and catch a tailgate wherever you're at. Dan Donnelly and TailgateConnect.com can hook you up with some of the greatest tailgates in the nation. Check out our YouTube videos on
Thursday
YouTube. Thursday night at Louis on Campus Corner. Great food, cold drinks, great staff. Stop in anytime we're there or when we're not. They'll treat you like kings. Maybe not if you tell them you know us.
Tell them Big Rob sent you.
Tell them Big Rob sent you. So, also, remember, if you haven't already, to catch us on Netflix, QB1.
Season 3, Episode 9.
Episode 9. You will hear us for about maybe 5 seconds.
Is it 5 seconds?
Yeah, I haven't timed it yet, but, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi yet, but
okay.
We're there, and we're in the credits. So, it's official. We are on QB1.
Right.
Also, check us out later this week. Keep an eye out on Twitter because Sooner Football Fans podcast and our tailgate Like a Champion, is going to be on tailgaterradio.com.
Right.
They came up and did a segment with us about Oklahoma football tradition, the great things about game day in Oklahoma, where to go, what to do, tailgating at Oklahoma football.
Super nice guys.
Yes, and it will be out, we believe, Thursday or Friday. But it is a episode where he's talking about, it's the kickoff. It's a Sunday game, so he wanted to do Oklahoma-Houston. So we're going to be on that podcast, and I believe there's also a videography that's going to be on it as well.
Mm-hmm.
There was some guy with a camera video on us. That's all I know.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing
half the time he was, I don't know, he was kind of here and there and everywhere, so I don't know.
But speaking of tailgates, it is game week. We're all pumped and excited. Come out to the tailgate. Kicking off about noon on Sunday, going until game time. On the menu is burgers, chips, cookies, ice-cold beverages of the adult and non-adult choice. Okay. So, couldn't think of the word.
That's all right.
Yeah, but
I think they knew where you were going.
Yeah, we are on the corner of Jenkins and Brooks, right. Northeast corner of Jenkins and Brooks, caddy corner from the stadium.
Just
right in the
north
middle.
of Brooks.
Yeah, just north on the north side of Brooks.
Right.
So make sure and come and hang out with us, or just stop in and say hi. Sit down, have a burger, have a cold drink. Or as our guest is having, we won't have them there, but we might have a cigar if you want to have a cigar. We're not going to have the type that JY is enjoying. But on the phone with us from the Football Braniacs, we got JY. Boomer, JY.
Hey, Boomer, guys. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic, man. How's it going?
Going pretty well. Any day I'm not at work, it's obviously a very good day.
It's a good day. Yep.
Well, we were you mentioned it before we started the podcast, and I saw your post. You were sunning it up a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, weren't you?
Yeah, the wife and I went down to Nassau, Bahamas, down to the Atlantis Resort down there. And if you're ever down there, you got to hit up the straw market. They've got a lot of guys running around with Cuban cigars, and so they got me quite a few of them. And unfortunately, I'm on the last one that I was able to have, and I have to admit they're extremely good. So if you're ever out of the country and you get an opportunity to knock them out and you love cigars, and you go for it.
Did you happen to stay in the Michael Jackson suite there at the Atlantis?
No, that's above my pay grade.
What is it now? $25,000 a night?
I'm not sure. I mean, even looking at that makes my eyes hurt.
So here's the thing: me and Terry would not stay, even if we could afford it, because Terry, it's like how many stories up, JY? Would you say that is?
I think we're like on the second floor. We weren't very high up.
No. How high is the Michael Jackson suite?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you. It's tall. I mean, those buildings are gigantic.
It's way up there, Terry,
no.
And the floor is glass.
Nope. No. If you don't know it, JY, me and Rob have a unhealthy respect or fear of heights. I say respect.
And I say healthy.
don't like being up in the air.
Well, that's a nice way to describe us guys that are built like us. I mean, it's healthy. So anytime you disagree with gravity like we do, I mean, I think you get a little bit more uneasy the higher up you go.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And that's, I've seen, is it in Chicago where they have the slide that's on the outside, the glass slide that's on the outside of a building?
Yeah, it's at the Sears Tower. And, we were up there for a few years, actually lived in the Chicago area, and that was one place I refused to visit.
Yeah, no. You're not going to hang my fat butt out on glass slide for anything, ever.
I'd be locked up. You better call the fireman because I can't move.
They're going to have to put some something, a blow dart or something on me to calm me down to drag me out. So
that movie The Hangover where they had to shoot him twice with the taser or whatever it was?
Yep.
But what was you said it was in the Bahamas was where you're at?
Nassau.
Yeah.
Nassau. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and if you end up going down there, you got to try go swim with the pigs and stuff like that. That was pretty cool.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Going out to the outer islands and all that kind of stuff. That was kind of made the trip.
So did you come back all tan and rested and ready to go?
Unfortunately, I'm a little bit what we call fluorescent. I'm kind of a quasi ginger, and so my wife goes and she gets burnt a little bit, and then the next day she's olive skinned Italian and looking great and all this other stuff, and here I am looking like a lobster with cancer. So it wasn't good. It wasn't good. We got back to the hotel room. She's rubbing with the aloe stuff on the top of my head because I don't have any hair.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh my God, I can feel how hot your head is." So,
yeah, that the first time I realized I was going bald, okay, was I was outside. I think we had gone to the lake and I didn't have a ball cap on. And that night I came home and I hopped in the shower and I went to wash my hair and the top of my head, it hurt to wash my hair. And I was like, how is my head sunburned? And then I realized it's because I have very little covering.
Right. That tends to happen.
Yeah. So now I just accept it,
That's why we wear ball caps.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, that's a unique kind of thing.
Yeah, but so are you geared up for the season to finally get underway, JY?
Yes. And, I was sitting there watching Miami and Florida play a little bit last night.
Boy,
I have to admit,
that Florida team is sure a tough-looking number 8, aren't they?
Yeah, they, offensively they're struggling. That defense, look pretty good. They can get after the passer.
Yeah.
But, I think it was a combination of how young that Miami offensive line is and how experienced they are. But they got some pass rushers. But, yeah, it was I don't know. It's one of those things that I think preseason rankings kind of go too much off of what you did last year. And, a team can change so much from year to year that I think they're worthless, to be honest with you. You got to play a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Really see how people look.
Yeah, I mean it's less. The preseason polls are talk. That's to get everybody talking, or to get everybody to complaining that their team's not where it's. If you're not in the top 5, you're pissed off. If it's your team. So, but I'm with you. I don't even think it should even. I don't even think they should do a poll until mid-season, then bring it out and say, okay,
Well, they got to have a reason to justify getting a whole bunch of SEC teams in. I'm just saying.
Yeah, the SEC, they're and I guess after the game, I watched after the Florida Miami game, I watched the deal, basically the history of college football. And it was really pretty interesting. I mean, even though I fell asleep halfway through it, but I did that because I'm old, not because it was interesting.
You're not really selling anybody on this.
Well, but you need to watch it. But during the commercials, they had a commercial. Basically, they're doing the same thing with the SEC, the history of the SEC. And, because I guess college football is 150 years old this year, and which is dumbfounding, to think that they've been playing college football for 100. And one of the parts on this deal that they were talking about, JY, I mean, we talk about, football is a violent sport, right? We all agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Football in like the early 1900s was a deadly sport. There were dudes
leather helmets.
they were getting killed on the football field.
Well, sure.
I mean,
if I remember correctly, I think it was either President Wilson or somebody like that had legislation introduced thinking about outlawing the game at one point.
Yeah, it was basically Teddy Roosevelt is who did, and part of the reason why is because his son got the crap beat out of him in a game, and he brought, and it's funny, it was the Ivy League teams. Okay, was the big hoopla, and he basically told them, you either got to make this game safer or it's going to kill itself and we're going to kill it. But I think there was one year, I'm not sure of the exact number, it was like 30 guys died on the field.
Wow.
And it was basically how it was played, because the forward pass was illegal. Okay. And these formations they had was the biggest guys in town, or in a 4-state area, and they would just bum rush the defense, and it was a fist fight when they were on the ground. I mean, it was, it was crazy. But I didn't, I knew they played without helmets and everything else, but it was literally guys. It was nothing for a player to die on the field. On the field of play. But they, like you said, they got they threatened them with legislation. That's when the NCAA was basically created. And they made the forward pass legal, started making them wear helmets and showed them the pads and, cups and all that stuff. And
you wouldn't think you would have to tell someone to wear a cup. I mean, how many times does it take before you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to put something over that area
to keep it.
Are you with me, JY? I mean, how many times does it take?
I don't know, man. I couldn't wear those things. I never wore one.
I didn't play football. No, but baseball, I wore one because I was a catcher.
Yeah, baseball's a little different, man.
Yeah.
You got stuff like, you got baseball. That's a little different.
Low-hanging fruit.
Normally, you can keep people away from that area if you
Yeah. But they had Switzer on. They had a bunch of coaches, but they were talking about that college football as we know it could go away. That literally they're talking like flag football or some resemblance of football, but with all the injuries, because there was one guy said there was a penalty. There's a penalty for unnecessary roughness. Okay, he goes, what you need to understand is there's unnecessary roughness penalty, but then the game is necessary roughness.
Right.
It is violent. But Switzer was like, yeah, he was kind of laughing. I guess they kind of posed that question. He was like, yeah, couldn't you just see people showing, ESPN announcing that Oklahoma and Texas are going to play in Dallas. They're going to televise a flag football game between the Sooners and Cowboys. Yeah, nobody would go. But just how. But it was really pretty interesting. But on the other end, again, the SEC, ESPN is doing an SEC story like the history of college football.
We don't care.
We don't care about the SEC, but which is one of the reasons why we like having JY on, because he talks about the violent stuff, the stuff that matters, the trench warfare, and you can check out his trench warfare on the Football Braniacs. It's always good stuff. We're still waiting on him. We're still going to do a segment with him at some point in time, a video, aren't we, JY? Because
definitely. I got to get a hall pass and get down that way on the weekend.
But let's start off. I want to talk about the offensive line last. Let's start off with the defense, because the defense is the Achilles heel of the Sooners. Has been, I would just say the last 2 years, because it's been more, revealing, I guess, these last 2 years. But it's been a decline. We've got a new defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch. What do you think about the speed D? And what you've seen, what you've heard, and what they've got on the Sooners defensive line to run this new attack?
Well, I have never been a fan of being passive defensively, if that makes sense.
Right.
I think defensively, especially in today's age where you have all these timing offenses and, people got to go through reads and all that type of thing, you have to dictate the tempo to the offense. The type of opponents that scare me as a Sooners fan when our offense faces someone are the ones that, like a Brent Venables defense, that attacks you. So hearing that Sooners are going to come out and they're just going to attack you and put fast guys on the field and all that type of thing really appeals to me and what I believe in philosophically, just how I think about football. So, I'm excited to see what they do. I'm cautiously optimistic. When you watch the spring game and you go back and you look at what they were able to do, there were a lot of plays that Gallimore was able to make, and there were a lot of plays that he just stopped on because the quarterbacks were wearing the blue jerseys, the red jerseys. I can't remember what they were wearing, but they were basically hands off. But in a live situation, he would have made a lot more plays.
Right.
And I think that the Sooners have had the wrong personnel to do what they were trying to do the last few years, if that makes sense. Because you look at a guy like,
unless they were trying to be bad, then they had the right. No, I'm sorry.
I mean, you look at Jordan Phillips was probably the last true nose that they had.
Yeah.
And the type of defense they wanted to run. And that guy was 6'6", 320 pounds. You got to have a guy in there, and you got to have the big guys on the edges like what Alabama has if you're going to run a 3-man front and two-gap like what they were doing. Whereas I think they have the right personnel. I've always felt they have the right personnel to go to a one-gap scheme in a more attacking style of defense. I think that probably a good physical comparison for Neville Gallimore is a guy like Gerald McCoy. Now, obviously, on-field production hasn't been anywhere near what McCoy did when he played there, and what he's still doing, playing for Carolina now. But, what they've been doing, asking a guy like Kenneth Mann, at 257 or, 267 pounds or whatever it is, I mean, that's very, very light for a guy to play on the inside eye of a tackle. Mm-hmm. In between a tackle and a guard, and ask that guy to control two people that both weigh over 300 pounds.
Yeah.
So, but you take that guy and you tell him, okay, this is your gap to start with. You get upfield as quickly as you can, or you go attack this way, or we're going to run a slant, or we're going to, do this, that, or the other. And you make that offensive lineman have to deal with their quickness. And then with all the stemming and moving around that you see before the snap, that's going to confuse the hell out of an offensive lineman. Offensive linemen don't like that. At least I didn't when people move around before the snap, because you can't get a good look at what you're going to do before the play. You want to be sure what you're doing, because if you caused any confusion, then it slows you down. So, I'm excited to see what they're going to do, because I really think that guys like Kenneth Mann, Marquise Overton, you haven't heard his name a lot, and then Gallimore obviously, and even Matu in the middle. I think they're going to cause a lot of problems, just getting upfield and wreaking havoc.
I sure hope so.
Oh yeah, I mean, the only thing that stood out, like you said, during the spring game, and you really can't gauge anything from the spring game. Let's just face it.
Not much.
But, like you said, the guys, the line was in position, but the thing that bothered me was the guys behind the defense. I mean, behind the defensive line, was I still saw a lot of shoulder tackling, or as our coaches used to call it back when I played, titty bumping. You're running up there trying to knock them down with your boobies. That's, that they still didn't seem to have and from what I understand, it's been a focus, I guess, through the summer, in the spring, and in fall, in the camps of, you guys are going to have to get guys on the ground and get your hands on the ball. Personally, I'd love to see them if, they throw a shoulder into the guy to tackle him, for him to just drag him off the field, because it's you're doing the same thing that hasn't worked for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
But I did still see a lot of that, but hopefully that's something that's I'm with you, Joe. I think Rob is too. It's cautious. Well, Rob's drinking the Kool-Aid full bore.
Yep.
I'm still, I still haven't opened my packet of Kool-Aid to go, I'm all in. I'm still not drinking the Kool-Aid until I see it steadily through 3, 4, 5 games. I'm just not gonna. I'm not gonna have. If I'm not expecting them to be good, I'm not gonna be disappointed. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at. Whether it's right or wrong, the last 3 or 4 years, it's literally just about giving me a heart attack and a stroke. It's causing my blood pressure. My doctors put me on more medication now. So, and it's like, she asked me, she kind of looked at me funny, because I actually did answer. I didn't tell you this, Rob. Was like, from the I'm at the age I got to get doctors, appointments every year now. They check everything, make sure. And she's like, well, your blood pressure is fine, but your cholesterol, a few things. What in your life has changed over the last 5 years? Because it's been a new doctor for the last 5 years. To have these changes, you've gained a little bit of weight, and I was like, well, I'm pretty sure it's the Oklahoma defense, because I drink more, I eat more when I'm when I'm nervous. So my health problems, are because of the defense. Yeah.
Well, listen, you're going to get better. Your health is going to get better, because I'm telling you, they've got no choice but to be better. There's nowhere to go from last. But here's the thing, and if I was the coach, I would remind them every day. Guess what? Last year you were last.
Yeah.
You were last year. So do you want to just do a half-hour workout, or you want to go for the full hour? Whatever. You got to be using that as motivation, doesn't he, JY? Last year you were last.
He's got to use that as motivation. But I'm still of the mindset that the biggest way to motivate somebody, especially on a football field, is with job loss.
Yeah. Sure. Oh yeah.
And I think with the depth that they have, I think they have some quality depth all over the place. I still am of the mindset that they have talent. We follow a lot of these kids at PFB, and we watch them, and you watch the film, you break down the film, and you see the type of athletes they've been getting on campus now for a long time. I think that's been upgraded since Riley took over, but even before that, they weren't just getting slouches on campus. You had guys that can run, they can hit, they can jump, they're strong, they're football players.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once they got on campus, I don't think that they've been getting developed like what you're going to see them be developed. You look at what Bill Bedenbow has been able to do on the offensive line, bringing guys in, and he's got a blueprint. He knows what type of player that he wants. You see Grant's doing the same thing. He knows the type of player that he wants on the outside at corner. You hear him talk about length all the time, all that type of thing. So I think you have somebody that's going to be able to recruit to his scheme, develop these kids once they get on campus, and then have some accountability. Some of the things that you heard about, these kids in practice before, where they get in shouting matches, things like that with the coaches, that doesn't fly now.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. And I think the kids respect this new staff probably a little more than they did the one in the past. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything else.
No.
I think for any organization, no matter what you're doing, if you're working McDonald's or if you're playing for Oklahoma, you've got to believe in what you're doing as a group, or you're not going to have any success.
Mm-hmm. And seeing that's one of the things that is bothersome for me is exactly what you just said, is what happens this Sunday or next Sunday, however it is, these Sunday games, I'm not used to this, but if Houston gets the ball first and they get a 3rd and 12 conversion, a 3rd and 8 conversion, a 3rd and 15 conversion, and score on the first drive, does that just take the wind out of this Oklahoma defense, of them going, oh, crap, this is the same thing that happened last year? The fans are going to do that. But if that happens to this defense at any point in time, in this game, does that take their confidence out?
I think, obviously they'll be disappointed, but I think that what we're going to see on 3rd and 3 is not the 98-yard cushion that we've heard talk about a few times.
Yeah.
I think, you're going to see the corners up in people's faces. You're going to see, guys challenging people, and you're going to see some pressure on the quarterback. I think that they're not going to sit back and just give a quarterback 3 days of a nap to try to find somebody that's open. You cannot do that. I mean, when Bob Stoops took over in 2000, what was everybody doing? I mean, the type of style of offense, Nebraska had just got done in 96 and 97 running that power split back, running all that type of stuff. I mean, we ran the split back veer in college in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
So then you had the Michael Bishops of the world and all those guys at K-State. I mean, everybody was still running the football. So coming from that Bill Snyder school of defense that he came from, you could play 8 yards off the line of scrimmage, and a guy like Eric Crouch was not going to be able to consistently go down the field. So you could wait 4 or 5 or 6 plays, and they would make enough mistakes where you could get them off the field. Well, now you got these kids playing 7-on-7 from the time they could walk.
Yeah.
So these kids can make these throws in their sleep now, and you cannot play defense that way. You're going to have to force people to throw into tight windows. And Super K that's on the site, he and I talk about it all the time. When you go play an SEC team, why you see people like Texas Tech, even Oklahoma struggle a little bit, is you have to throw the football into tight windows. They're not going to give you these bubble screens. They're not going to give you these little quick outs. They're not going to give you that type of stuff that says, okay, we're going to let you catch the ball and then we're going to make a tackle right there. They're going to prevent you from catching the football, which is exactly what Rob and I always talk about when we've been on here. So I think that Grits comes from that same mindset where you're going to have to work for everything you get. And, back to your original question with come next Sunday night, Houston, right off the bat, has got a very dynamic quarterback in De'Aaron King. He is dynamic. He can run, he can throw, he can do all those things. So they're going to have to get after it. And the coaches are going to have to build these kids up and say, hey, look, this guy can play. So even if he gets a couple plays on us, just keep playing. We're gonna get there. We're gonna do some things, but I just think that we're not just gonna sit there and hope for things to happen. I think that Grinch, his philosophy is that we're gonna go out and make things happen.
Man, I hope so. My doctor would love to hear that next year.
Yeah, mine would too.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit and let's go to the offensive side of the ball, because I've said this the last several podcasts is that Jalen Hurts is coming in, and he is going to have more targets, more skilled people around him than Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray have had combined, okay, the last 3 years. You've got the triplets. You've got Calcaterra. You got C.D. Lamb. Rob, what's the other guy's name?
Trajan Bridges?
Nope. You're doing the same thing you did a while ago.
What?
Rambo. That's who. He's got Rambo. He's got the freshman tight end. Just went blank again. Austin Stogner. He's got the two running backs. The H-backs. Good Lord. I mean, that offense.
It's not like for talent. That's for sure.
It's player after player after player after player in that skilled position. And now we have the offensive line who sent 4 guys to the NFL this year, who I believe all 4 of them are starting on said teams that they are on.
Yeah.
And replacing those. Now, I may be crazy, okay, but this is my opinion of it, JY. Tell me I'm crazy if you want. I will believe you. But these guys, number one, they're massive. Every one of them. I'm sitting here looking at a list of them. They're big, okay? And they were the backups to the best offensive line in the country with the exception of one. There's 4, whoever they're starting for. They were the backups to the best in the business last year. The drop between the best and the next best isn't that far. Now, am I crazy?
We hope.
That's just my opinion. Or am I crazy for thinking that?
Well, for us to think that there's not going to be a drop-off of some kind, both at the quarterback position and the offensive line is – and I have to stop myself on this because I think these guys are really talented and really good football players, but I don't think it's realistic to believe that there's not going to be a drop-off, especially early in the season.
Right.
I think that, you've got 4 guys that, like you said, they're starting for NFL teams now. That's no small feat.
Right.
You've got 2 out of 5 guys on the Baltimore Ravens offensive line that 2 years ago, they were starting next to each other in Ben Powers and Orlando Brown.
Yeah.
So I think that these guys could be that good. I think that Bedenbaugh continually gets these guys on campus that like to play football, that understand what it means to have pride in what they do as an offensive lineman. You've got to have a unique individual that wants to come in and be an offensive lineman.
Right.
That doesn't worry about stats. It doesn't worry about scoring touchdowns. I mean, I played ball 16 years and I never scored a touchdown. And the only time you touch the ball is when somebody screws up. So you hope that you never touch the ball. And but those same guys will walk past that massive trophy that's the Joe Moore Award and just have a sense of pride and honor and duty that they're not going to be the weak link in the chain.
Right.
Bedenbaugh knows how to coach guys up and get guys in the right mindset. And I think for these guys, when you look across the line, I did a write-up on it here a week or so ago, to where you all the way across the board, you've got 3rd and 4th year players that are starting, so they've had to wait their turn. And now they've got something to prove because they were all the man in their hometowns, and they haven't been able to play yet. And, so you go home and, people are asking, when are you going to get to play? Or, that guy's not good enough to play at Oklahoma. See, I told you were going to say, all that stuff. So they're thinking about all this stuff right now. So they're going to have something to prove when they come out. Now, how much Riley depends on them early and how much he digs in and runs the football is a storyline that I'm going to be looking for, because over the last few years, whenever the Sooners run the ball more times than they throw the ball, they win that football game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only 2 games that they haven't done that in the last few years have been Houston and Ohio State a couple of years ago. And I think they went on a streak of running more times than they did passing it, even with Baker Mayfield. And you had Alabama this last year, obviously, because you got behind a lot. So I think they're going to be good. Now, can they be good enough early in the year to not get the team in a bind? Now, that's going to be the big question.
Yeah.
But having a guy like Jalen Hurts, that he's physically a horse. I mean, this guy he's obviously bigger than Kyler Murray. He's obviously bigger than Baker Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
Because neither one of those guys are real big guys to begin with. But Jalen could play linebacker for us. I mean, he's a big dude. So he's semi like a Tim Tebow in terms of build, maybe not quite that big, but very similar, but with a much better arm. So anytime you get a quarterback like that in a spread offense, he'll be able to break tackles of safeties, even corners. He was doing that all the time in the SEC before, Tua took over. But I think offensively they're going to be okay. I don't think the offensive line is going to be as good as it was, just because it's going to take them time to gel. It's going to take them time to mesh, and I think that these guys got to settle in a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that was really kind of the point I was making. They're not going to be as good, but not being as good as the best offensive line in the country, ain't that bad. If they're the 5th best offensive line in the country, maybe that's hoping
still
for
good
too
enough,
much.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Sure.
It's the drop off. I mean, that offensive line last year was it. Obviously, you don't put I don't know the stat line or anything else of how many teams have had their offensive line go straight into the NFL and play on other teams. But my point being is that these guys that were behind them, like you said, they're hungry. They're waiting on their turn. And no, they're not going to be the best offensive line in the country, but the drop-off isn't going to be that big of a gap, I don't think, because of just the point you and I have just made. It's like they're hungry. They're, and like you said, I mean, that's something a lot of people don't think about. And you made a great point, JY, is when, these kids got to go home and they got to hear, people say, well, see, when are you going to get to play? Or like you said, there's a lot of idiots sitting around in the cafes in the morning drinking coffee going, I told you that boy wasn't good enough to play at Oklahoma. They hear that when they go,
big fat kid, and all this other stuff that you hear, So I think but the key to the whole damn thing, I'll tell you this right now, is it doesn't matter what any of us think. It's what those guys believe that they can do.
Right.
And they've got somebody in Beatonbow that has taught them how to think, how to act, how to go about their business day after day after day. And then they have these guys like Cody Ford and, Drew Samia and Ben Powers and all these guys that have gone on and had success. And they saw how they went about their business every day. And now you're looking at a group that if Swenson's able to come back from his injury, he could come back and be a starter by the end of the year again, depending on whether or not R.J. Proctor takes that job out there or even Finley Felix.
Yeah.
But across the board, you go, let's say it is Swenson. You got a junior, a sophomore, and a sophomore. So it's not far-fetched to think, obviously everybody thinks Creed Humphrey could come out this year and he's got the talent to do that, but you don't know what his parents want him to do. You don't know what he wants to do.
He may love going to college, He
may love going to college.
He may want another year to develop.
Right. And then they see how good the defense is doing. If Grinch is able to turn it around and you got guys waiting in the wings like Spencer Rattler and all that type of thing, you could realistically have this group be together for 2 or 3 years. And then we're talking about them in the same mindset that we're talking about these other guys that just started some of these preseason games. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's what Beatonbow does. He knows how to recruit quality depth. And that's why some of these kids that are very, very good football players don't necessarily want to come to Oklahoma because, hey, you might not start day one. And some of these kids want to start day one.
Yeah.
But if you get on campus and you're not good enough to beat this guy out, are you going to be able to not spread poison in the locker room and to go in and go about your work and work until you're good enough to take that job from somebody else?
Yeah, and like we were talking earlier, Rob and I before it, man, this offensive line is massive.
Yeah, they're big boys. Yeah,
I mean Humphrey 6'5", 315. You were talking about Swenson. He's hurt, but he's 6'5", 317. Finley Felix, 6'5", 314. Freshman Stacy Wilkins, 6'6", 309 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Ely,
he's not the biggest one. Keep going.
Ely, 6'6", 326. David Swaby, is that how you pronounce his name? Swaby, 6'9", 319. Marquise Hayes, 6'5", 332. Daryl Simpson, 6'7", 349. Tyrese Robinson, 6'3". He's the baby. Boy needs to grow. 328. And R.J. Proctor, 6'4", 337. I mean, good Lord.
They're big. Mm-hmm.
What are we feeding these kids now, man? That they, I have never said I am tall, okay? But I don't know if you saw the picture that we tweeted out from Louis on Thursday night. Did you see that, JY?
Yeah.
I'm a friggin' midget. Okay. I am standing there, and I didn't even realize, I'm talking to the guys and everything. They were nice enough to take a picture, and then I'm looking at the picture. I'm like, good Lord. I mean, I look like a, old dwarf standing next to these guys. It's crazy how big these kids are now.
They are. It's nuts.
And I was considered a big kid when I was in high school. Not tall, but hey, big. But it is these guys. 6'6", 6'7", and the linemen are so much more thicker than the tight ends that we were that we saw up there, and they work hard at what they do.
Oh,
and
sure they do.
To maintain that weight and that strength and everything, those guys have got to eat and work and eat the right things to sustain, what they do. It's just amazing how big these kids are and how athletic they are at that size.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like you taught us. I say taught us because you were talking about how Bedenbaugh knows he doesn't necessarily look at the best guy. He looks at the best group. What group of guys gels together. Go into his thought process or how that works out for him and what he's looking for.
Well, you just look at it, and there's an old video that goes around when Bear Bryant talked about how, if you had a player that was capable of an 85, and then he played harder and prepared harder and all that type of thing. And then on game day, he played at a 90. He's going to beat the guy that, doesn't prepare as hard and was capable of an 85, and he hadn't paid the price. And, if you look that up, it's a good video to watch, and it still translates today because let's say you got this group of guys. He was even talking about it. Bedenbaugh was talking about it here when James and some of the other guys in the press were interviewing here few days ago, where he said he's going to continue to move guys around until he finds the best unit.
Right.
And let's say you've got a guy performing at a 9 on the outside, but at guard, you've got a couple of guys performing at a 7. So will that guy performing at a 9 be able to bump down inside and play guard at an 8 maybe? And you've got a guy that's a little bit better than him, that's a little bit better player than the two guys that were inside going at a 7. Now he bumps him in outside, and he's at an 8, 8.5. Can he do that all the way across the line and get this group to be the best that they could possibly be? Because there's so much that goes into it when understanding the calls and understanding the formation and knowing where your help's coming from and knowing what you do on a blitz and anticipating where these guys are coming from. And that's why R.J. Proctor, I think, is going to see a lot of time because he's mature and he's smart and he's been through the fire out at Virginia. You know, you're probably going to see him start on Sunday out at left tackle.
Yeah.
Whereas he played at guard, I believe, over at Virginia. And just like I think it was 2015, the Sooners go on the road and they didn't have any business winning that game at Tennessee, and then they ended up coming back and winning in the last few minutes in overtime, all that kind of thing. And then they ended up losing at Texas. And after that Texas game, you saw Drew Samia come out and he started. And then, you know, Jonathan Alvarez moved from, I believe it was center over to guard, and then you had all that stuff happen. I think you may see some of that stuff happen. Hopefully you don't see a loss that goes with it, but I think he knows his personnel well enough to know, and seeing their work habits and seeing these guys day in and day out, to where he's got a good idea already what he's going to do and having contingencies. So, you know, it wouldn't shock me to see a lot of different guys play on Sunday and then seeing guys settle in, because now you're starting to hear about a guy like Bray Walker that's pushing for playing time too. He's had such a great camp. So, you know, the 5 guys that probably start Sunday might not be the guys that start week 3, and they probably for sure may not be the guys that start week 7. You know, you don't know how much he's going to do that. And they might push each other all year to where they rotate a little bit more depending on how that works out. So it's just going to be interesting to watch, that's for sure.
The rotation in my deal, I'm never not happy with that, because if they got guys that can rotate in and out and keep a sustained level of play, that's just, you know, fresh big men out there beating up on people, you know. And that's always my rathers, you know, is if they've got, you know, a unit and a half or a unit and 3/4, if they got 7 guys that can rotate in there, or 6 guys that can keep fresh rolling in, that's always the best, you know, the best recipe, I think, for success.
Yeah, and I get that too, but when I played, I hated it.
Oh, yeah.
Because, damn it, that's my spot, and I'll be damned if you're going to take it. I'm going to rip somebody's throat out, so coach isn't going to take me out. You know, so. Yeah,
back in my day, we played the old Iron Man football. You know, you played both ways, but I had to alternate. Yeah, I had to alternate my senior year with another guy on defense, not on offense, because I was more important on offense than I was in defense. Oh, my God, I hated it. I would stand over there. If they were getting a drive, I would be bugging the coach to put me back in. You know, I don't want to stay out. And he was like, Long, you need a break. I can't, you know. I'm like, I get breaks on punts and, you know, kickoffs. I don't need a break. But I had to alternate those series, and I hated it.
My offensive line coach always used to say, "Don't make me not need you."
Yeah.
make it to where I can't live without you. You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think you hear some of that can motivate you. Goes back to job loss.
Yeah.
You know, make it where I can't live without you.
So, do you have any, what's the word I'm looking for, Rob? Big, anything you think is going to surprise people this year on either side of the ball? Bold prediction, I guess, is the word I was looking for. Any type of prediction that you think could happen?
I think the thing that we'll see happen sooner than what people think will be defensive improvement.
Okay.
Outstanding.
Just because of the accountability that you hear the coaches talking about and the enthusiasm that they coach with, you can tell they connect with the players. And I think they're really good teachers. So I'm not sure how they look Sunday. You know, they could come out and they could, you know, they could be not very good. But if, you know, they start having some success and they learn from it, and you see some guys get pulled out and some guys come in like a Levi Draper or something that maybe have earned some time in practice, and then they take a job, or somebody like that, you know, that is tired of not playing, then I think we could see some defensive improvement quicker than what we hope. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think they're going to be a top 5 defense nationally. I don't know that that's
you're not going out. You're not going out on that big a limb, huh?
No, but I think they're going to be better by quite a bit than what they were. I think I still back these kids. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that can play football on that team.
Mm-hmm.
They've always had the talent. I just don't know that they were being led in the right way, be as successful as they could be. And I think, as nicely as I can say it, I mean, but I think that's why there was a change made.
Yeah, let me throw a name out there that we haven't talked about, and it just jumped in my head. Michael Thompson from St. Louis. Now I know they moved into offense, and they said they were going to keep him on the offensive side of the ball. What's he? Where is he at in the mix of everything? Have you heard?
Well, you hear that he's supremely talented. Obviously, the guy's athletic enough to play defense. You got to have some first, second step quickness to be able to be even in that conversation where the coaches aren't even going to allow you to try. Right. So, you think about a guy like Jamal Brown back in the early 2000s, he was the same guy. I think he came out of Lawton Ike down there and was a defensive lineman, and then they moved him to offense. And the guy went and had some all pro years with the Saints. So I think that the kid's got all the tools in the world. The thing you got to remember about him, though, is he's just a second-year player.
Right.
He's coming back off from an ACL injury, so he's redshirted, just like Bray Walker. Everybody's ready to give up on Bray, but, I mean, the kid's, what is he, 19 years old? Second year out of high school. So, I mean, and I think that's why your second, third, fourth year in the program, that's when you really become a man. I think that you get some maturity that you definitely didn't have, in years 1 and 2. And I think that you're going to see him come into his own on the offense. I don't know if you'll see him out at tackle. You could, but I think where Michael could probably make a lot of money in the NFL, a position that's really becoming more and more important, is the offensive guard position. You got a guy like that to handle these athletic defensive linemen like an Aaron Donald. You can't just have a big guy that can't move in there at guard anymore. You've got to have these guys that can really move around and move some people. So I think he's going to be a good player for him. He might not get there this year, but next year and the year after, I mean, they've got some guys that can play on that offensive line.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited for it. We're here for it. And
finally here for it. So,
yep.
Well, yeah. Rob, you got anything else to throw at JY?
I don't think so. I just, we're obviously all excited, and I appreciate him giving me some encouragement for drinking the defensive Kool-Aid.
I still ain't mixing the Kool-Aid up yet. I'm not going to do it. My heart.
Well, you don't have any choice. If you're going to ride with the seniors, you got to drink the Kool-Aid.
That's right.
You may not like our taste, but you
no,
still
I don't. I'm going to drink the team Kool-Aid. I'm not drinking the defensive Kool-Aid. Okay, I've done it the last 3 and 4 years, and I just can't do it, man. It's.
Don't be a sissy, Terry.
Until I see, and I know it will get better, but I just don't know if it's going to get better this year. Or, like I said, I'm not going to say it can't get worse because we said that last year. All three of us, right, were on last year and said, well, it can't get any worse. Well, it did. But, I know it's going to get better, but, it's frustrating seeing, 2 teams like what we've had, that the Achilles has been that defense, and if we could just pulled a couple of stops out of a sock, then it'd be a whole different story.
Yeah, it would have been.
But anyway, hey JY, we appreciate you coming on. But that's it for today's podcast, folks. We appreciate everybody listening, and we'll get you next time. Boomer Rob.
Boomer Terry.
Boomer JY.
All right, thanks, guys, for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Sooner Football Fans Podcast. Sooner Football Fans Podcast is hosted by Rob Nixon, Terry Long, and occasionally Caleb Long. It is produced at the beautiful Podcast Palace in Norman, Oklahoma. Follow us on Twitter at SoonerFBFans and like our Facebook page at Facebook.com/Sooner Football Fans, and visit our website at www.SoonerFootballFans.com to read our blogs and keep up with our tailgating activities. Boomer Sooner, everyone.